This is Jeff Mucci with RCR Wireless News. We're in Palo Alto today meeting with Pete Daffern, who is CEO of Clairmail. Pete, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Clairmail doesn't necessarily tell people what you really do.
Indeed.
Mobile banking and payments. Tell us a little bit about how you do it and who you do it for.
So what mobile banking is all about is being able to allow a bank to reach out to its customers and allow those customers to do things that they've always wanted to do, but not necessarily being able to do before.
Right.
So if I'm out on the road and I want to know something as simple as what's my balance, then it's very difficult to do unless you've got a computer with you.
Right.
So with mobile banking, it allows you to do the rudimentary stuff, but it's also now reaching into allowing the banks to do all the stuff that they need to do to bring the cost of doing their business down dramatically. 90% call deflection from the call center. That's massive. Some of these banks where they've got 5,000 to 15,000 people in the call center, but also helping them run their business and avoid fraud and some of these things.
You mentioned 90% of, you said call deflection.
Yeah.
What are the primary reasons why people call a bank, and what's the cost per engagement for a bank typically?
So it's anywhere from $8 to $15 for something as simple as what's my balance?
Right.
Which is insanity, right? Because it's a frustrating interaction for the customer, and it's an extremely frustrating and expensive interaction for the bank. And there's a lot of this stuff that we need to, the banks are starting to get nailed down now, and they're starting to get it nailed down quickly. But we're also building a platform here for the future. I, for one, am terrible with cash. The only reason I ever have cash is because my kids want to buy candy or whatever it happens to be. If you look in my wallet, if you'd looked at my wallet yesterday, there was $1 in there.
Right.
And there's probably been $1 in there for a couple of weeks.
Right.
So the need for cash is going away. I don't want a wallet. I don't want credit cards. I don't want cash because I lose my wallet. I lose my credit cards.
Right.
And cash is just a necessary evil for me. So where this thing's moving towards is me being able to give you $20 or me being able to walk into a store and just tap my phone when it says, you owe me $25 or whatever. I tap my phone, says, okay, which credit card do you want to use? I tap that credit card, it pays it, it asks me for a password on here. So this is a much, much more secure way of being able to buy things and handle your money. If I lose my credit card, it takes me about a week to realize I've lost my credit card.
Right.
If I lose my phone, it takes me about 15 seconds.
Right.
It's like a part of me.
Sure. So earlier you mentioned that you're going to save a bank $80 million over 5 years. Can you describe how you're going to do that?
So we're doing that with a lot of banks now. So we're very fortunate that most of the major banks, certainly in the United States, are using our technology. And at the banks, 90% of the calls in the call center are asking two questions. What's my balance?
Yep.
Did a check clear? With this stuff, I can find out my balance literally in 5 seconds. I can just send a text message to the bank going B or BAL or balance, and 3 or 4 seconds later, I get a response.
Right.
Or also, did my salary get deposited? Rather than having to call the bank or dial into online banking, it will automatically just reach out to me and go, hey, your salary from Clairmail is cleared in the amount of whatever it happens to be. And that's a big deal for a lot of people, right, who they're very dependent on their salary so they can get their bills paid and so on and so forth. And that's a very rudimentary level of what the technology is all about. We're now starting to see the banks do a lot more with the software. Things like insufficient funds. Right. So, there's a big initiative right now around what's called Regulation E. So, around fees for credit cards and overdraft fees and so forth. Some of the banks have been proactive in saying they're reaching out to you and going, hey, if we cash this check, you're going to go overdrawn. Would you like us to transfer some money from your savings account to cover this? And this is all automatically handled by the systems on the back end interfacing with our technology to avoid that situation and obviously get much more customer loyalty.
Interesting. You were founded in 2006, and you've got some great investors, including Norwest Venture Partners. How were you able to, in literally 2 to 3 years, go from a startup to effectively owning the mobile banking relationship with all the major banks in the U.S.?
Focus, just a lot of good focus. It's very difficult when you're starting a software company to get what the right focus is. There's a lot of zigzagging often to get into iterating on the stuff that resonates with the customers. In this case, we quickly were able to understand what is important to the banks,
right,
and focused on the banks that were important to us. And once we got a few of the big banks, the other big banks started saying, well, if Bank of America or whoever it happens to be has bought Clairmail's technology, then that's good enough for us. So there was a little bit of a wave effect that came with this whole thing.
Interesting. And you joined the company just over a year ago?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your background and why you think you were selected to be the leader of Clairmail.
Sure. Well, first of all, when I first heard about this idea of mobile banking, I didn't get it, and I now obviously get it, and it's really going to change the way in which people interact with the banks, and more importantly, how the banks interact with their customers. So from that perspective, we're able to change people's lives to a certain extent, and that was really appealing to me. So that, on top of the fact that this is really cool technology, attracted me to the business. And it was just a classic case of a company needing to move to the next level, if you like, the next stage in its evolution, and to be able to scale more. And my history is being very fortunate. I've been part of 2 or 3 what were little companies, and we made them big companies, and they're all around today. They're all doing fantastic. And we took them from 10, 15, 20 people to a few thousand people with multiple $1 billion in revenue. And that skill set we felt was applicable to Clairmail because the investors see great things ahead for Clairmail as a business, as do I. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this.
What % of your business is U.S.-based today versus international?
Probably about 90% of it is U.S.-based, but that's by definition.
Okay.
It was let's get a foothold in the United States, and then let's worry about the other markets. People often say, oh, we've done the US, now we're going to go and do Europe, or we're going to go and do Asia. Just going and doing Europe's not that simple, right?
Sure.
Banking infrastructure in Italy is very different to Germany, which is very different to the UK, which is very different to Russia, which is very different to Sweden, and they all speak different languages, and they've all got different methods of communicating. So you've got to do this stuff very carefully. And we're actually out there now, and we have an internationalized product. It's 32-bit compliant, and we're starting to put the partners in place so that we can support our customers properly out there. Because our model is we sell to the bank, and then the bank promotes the service to their customers. And our level of service has to be extraordinary, right? So we can't afford to get it wrong. So there's a lot of focus on these relationships with the bank are going to be at least 10 years long, if not longer. So it's not where we can kind of throw software in and run in the other direction, as a lot of software companies do. It's when we've put our software in, we've done 0.0001% of the job. There's a lot of work to do now to make that bank successful. And we're very focused on that.
How do you keep the transactions secure?
Predominantly all of the transactions are actually happening on the back end. So it's an on-premise piece of software that's sitting behind the firewall with the bank. So when it comes to the phone, it's reliant on you having the phone by you, okay? Or if there's a significant transaction that's coming down, then it's looking for this to be password encrypted, okay? Or password protected, rather. So that's actually a lot more secure than, say, your credit card. So I could give you my credit card right now, and you could walk into any store and just use it.
Right.
They wouldn't check signature, whatever it happens to be. If you went into a store with this, you wouldn't be, and you wouldn't be able to use it because it's looking for a password.
Right. Pete, I think you brought your phone along to show us a demo. Do you mind maybe showing us how this works?
I would love to, because I use this stuff myself on a daily basis. So literally, simply, I want to find what my balance is. I typed in B, so I'm just in text messaging here. And there you can see it's brought back the balances across my wife's and my accounts. You can see there's a lot more money in her account than there is in my account. And that's it, as simple as that. If I want to transfer some money, I just go and I do transfer from my wife's account to my account. All of her money, please, and off we go.
Pete, that's so, go ahead, please.
So that's a very simplistic level where we're just using this for text messaging, which I particularly love. Or there's a whole interface for the iPhone, which is actually coming up in the background here. So full-blown iPhone or BlackBerry or Android or Palm client. Or if you want to use it through a browser where it's kind of traditionally reaching out to the bank and pulling information, you can do that as well. So that's the iPhone client now. So you have push alerts as opposed to text messages. Right?
Well, Pete, thanks for coming by this morning. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good.